is now 9 a.m. and we would like to call the meeting to order. Before we proceed, I would like to introduce you to the members of your board of directors via a short audio-visual presentation.
Welcome to the PBCOM Shareholders Meeting 2021. We'd like to introduce your board of directors. Mr. Eric O. Recto, Chairman of the Board. Mr. Leonardo B. Dayaw, Vice Chairman. Mr. Lucio L. Co, Executive Committee Chairman. Ms. Patricia May T.C., President and Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Jaime Dre Bautista. Mr. Bunsit Carlos G. Trong. Mrs. Susan P. Co. Mr. Jack Ekian T. Huang. Mr. Leve B. Labra. Mr. Gregorio T. Yu. Mr. Conrado A. Gloria Jr. Mr. Bienvenido E. Laguesma. Mr. Emmanuel Y. Mendoza. Mrs. Hilda E. Pico. Mr. Henry Y. Uy, Board Advisor. Your senior management team.
Okay, thank you. May we know from the secretary if notices of today's annual stockholders meeting were distributed to the stockholders as required by the pertinent issuances of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and if there is a quorum for the transaction of business.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Following the SEC's guidelines on alternative modes of distributing notices, we have caused the publication in 2 newspapers of general circulation for 2 consecutive days in both print as well as in online format. I also certify that they are present today via video conferencing stockholders owning a total of 408,420,391 shares, representing 84.97% of the bank's capital stock. We therefore have a quorum for the transaction of business, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We now come to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of the stockholders, which was the annual meeting held on July 14, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, to save time and considering that the minutes have been made available to the stockholders, I move that the reading of the minutes of the previous annual stockholders meeting held on July 14, 2020 be dispensed with and that such minutes be approved without reading.
I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the reading of the minutes of the annual stockholders meeting be dispensed with and that the same be approved without reading. Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is hereby approved. The next item is the management report for the year ended December 31, 2020. May I now ask the President to discuss this in more detail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. 2020 proved to be a very challenging year, but your bank performed relatively well. Our preparedness for this pandemic did not happen overnight. In the last 5 years, we had built a solid foundation for the bank to withstand any form of crisis.
In times of uncertainties, banks need to provide confidence to their customers. We kept our services available. We had to equip our people, ready our premises, in order to keep everyone, including our clients, safe. With the investments made in technology and innovation, we were able to make relevant products available for use in the safety of one's home or office. We made sure we continued our employee engagement and activities as we took care of one of our most important assets, our people. We are pleased to share now our financial highlights for 2020. We reached 1.168 billion for our consolidated net income after tax. Our revenue grew by 16.6% on wider net interest margin and higher non-interest income. We kept our pre-provision operating expense flat and reduced cost-to-income ratio to 52.2%. Our low-cost deposits grew 11% and brought our cost of funds down. We shed some of our investment securities and continued to support corporate borrowers. We provided for 1.42 billion for possible account deterioration. The bank's capital adequacy ratio of 18.9% will be ready to take advantage of demands in borrowing as it happens.
Through these trying times, we have learned many lessons. Lessons that we will carry with us and make your bank stronger than ever. Thank you to all our stakeholders for your continued trust and confidence and unwavering support for your bank.
We propose to take up the discussion of the report and any other matters which any stockholder may wish to take up at the end of the meeting, so that we can proceed with the agenda in an orderly fashion and have more time for discussions later on. Can I request a motion on the management report?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the management report just rendered on the audited financial statements be approved and made part of the affairs of the corporation. I second the motion.
Are there any objections from the floor? There being none, the motion is approved. The next item is the ratification and approval of all the corporate acts of the Board of Directors and Management since the last annual stockholders meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that all acts, proceedings, transactions, and agreements authorized by and entered into by the Board of Directors, Executive Committee, and the officers of the bank for and in behalf of the bank from the last annual stockholders meeting to date be approved, confirmed, and ratified.
I second the motion.
Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is approved. We now go to the next item in the agenda, which is the proposal to amend the bank's bylaws to reflect our commitment to abide by good corporate governance and also to include the BSP prescribed board-level committees of the bank. The summary of the amendments to the bank's bylaws are flashed on the screen and was also discussed in great detail under the information statement distributed to our stockholders.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the proposed amendments to the bank's bylaws as presented be approved and that all unqualified votes be in favor of the said approval.
I second the motion.
Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is approved. We now come to the next item in the agenda, which is the election of the members of the Board of Directors. It is mandatory that independent directors be elected to the board. There are at least 5 slots for independent directors in the board. Only nominees whose names appear in the final list of candidates shall be eligible for election. Mr. Secretary, can you inform the body of the nominations that the corporation has received for election to the Board of Directors?
The Chairman, Nominations Committee has received, evaluated, and approved the nomination for election of the following as members of the Board of Directors for the year 2021 to 2022. For regular directors, Eric O. Recto, Leonardo B. Dayaw, Patricia May T.C., Lucio Elco, Susan Pico, Vincent Carlos Chichong, Gregorio T. Yu, Debbie B. Labra, Jack E. Huang, and Jaime J. Bautista. And for independent directors, Conrado A. Gloria Jr., Bienvenido E. Laguesma, Emmanuel Y. Mendoza, Hilda E. Pico, and Robert Y. Coque.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the nominations be closed and that the secretary be directed and authorized to cast all votes of the stockholders present or represented at this meeting equally among the 15 nominees.
I second the motion.
Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is approved. The secretary is hereby directed and authorized to cast all votes of the stockholders present or represented at this meeting equally among the nominees. The chairman now therefore declares the 15 nominees as the duly elected members of the board of directors for the current year to act as such until their successors are duly elected and qualified in accordance with the bylaws. Next item is the appointment of our company's external auditor.
I move that the accounting firm of SGV and Company be reappointed as the external auditors of the company for the current year ending December 31, 2021.
I second the motion.
Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is approved. The firm SGV and Company is therefore reappointed external auditor of the company for the current year ending December 31, 2021. As stated earlier, we can now have the discussion on the management report and other matters which the stockholders may wish to take up. Participating stockholders are also given the opportunity to submit questions or remarks via this live stream portal by using the Q&A button found at the bottom of your screens. Are there any questions from the stockholders?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other matters, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Be adjourned.
I second the motion.
It has been moved that the meeting be adjourned. If there are no objections, the meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.